Today's episode is brought to you by One Shot Energy Voice Drops. They are a low-sugar yuzu honey lozenge that soothes and protects your throat and voice with an infusion of slippery elm, marshmallow, and licorice root. Whether you are a full-time gamer, public speaker, pastor, preacher, teacher, maybe you like doing podcasting, you got to get your hands on these voice drops by oneshotenergy.com. Be sure to use my promo code AMBGLO for 10% off your entire order. oneshotenergy.com. What's up, fam? Thank you for joining us. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. And then we're also going to be live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other podcast outlet out there. And we're just excited to be here. It is Monday, 12:48 p.m. here in the PNW. So for anybody that, if you haven't shared this out, thank you in advance for doing so. We're going to be live with our content today. Title for today is Ziplock Bag Fellowship. If you want to know what I'm talking about, be sure to stay. We'll be live in 48 seconds. Just to make sure that I don't do a bait and switch, I promise you I'm going to tell you exactly what Ziploc bags have to do with fellowship. And if you're from Hawaii, you know what I'm talking about. If you are familiar with Hawaiian culture, you know exactly what I'm going to. So let me go ahead and just throw it out there. So I don't want to be like a salesman who does a bait and switch. I hate bait and switches. So Ziploc bags in fellowship, when it comes to Native Hawaiian culture, has everything to do with providing for our guests. Okay, so if you come to my house and I say, hey, it can be whoever, it can be Alex, it can be TNT, it can be my neighbor down the street. Hey, come to my house Saturday. We're gonna grind. We're gonna have like some Hawaiian food and we're gonna have music. But before you leave, we're gonna have all these boxes set up with just a bunch of gallon-sized bags, and we're gonna fill it up with all the food that you just had. And a lot of times we don't ask, we just say, here you go. Part of the culture is that, we want to be a blessing. And we have that, family, people say ohana atmosphere, but it's really just to bless people, right? And so that's all I'm going to share about that. Because there's a lot more to the dynamics of that, what I just said. But I wanted to throw that out there. I don't want to be a bait and switch kind of a guy. So, but first of all, thank you for being here, man. We appreciate you guys. For those on replay, I have a lot more replay listeners, I think, than live. And I'm so grateful to have what we call an RSS feed. For anybody that does podcasting, man, like it is so, it seems like a dinosaur. At least that's what we thought when it came to social media. But then with recent, political advancements in Facebook, Meta now, Twitter, now called X, and various other platforms with TikTok, we're finding that your content is not necessarily as secure as you thought it was. And it's funny how now we're going back to 20 plus years ago where podcasting started. And now we have the ability to put our content out there and we own it. It's ours. Nobody can say, hey, I don't like your political stance. We're going to take it off the shelves. Truth is, once I create this, it's out there. It's a historical document, whether it's audio or video. And so I'm grateful to be able to have this voice. And before I get into our meat and potatoes today, there's an announcement for this Thursday. I'm going to be doing a podcast at Sora Sushi. For those of you familiar with that franchise, it's in Oregon, and it'll be my second time doing a podcast organically there, and should be fun. I'm trying to iron out the times. I know I said 11 a.m. Pacific, but it looks like it might be a little bit, maybe half an hour prior or after. So I'll try my best to start at 11. I'm just throwing it out there that sometimes when you set up on location and you're kind of like you're not you don't have a big team, it takes a minute to get all the lighting and the mics and the cameras and just make sure everybody's comfortable. After all that's set up, you take a breath, you're like, okay, let's do this. So anyways, this Thursday, 11:30, we'll just say 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Whatever time zone you're in, you got to do the math yourself. So I'm not good at doing the time zone math like how I used to. But going into today's topic, Ziploc bag fellowship, and I asked my kids before I went live. I said, "Hey, help me pick a title." And there's so many different titles I use, like the Art of Fellowship, and as appropriate and professional that the Art of Fellowship sounds, I think Ziploc bag fellowship fits perfect. And so one of the things I really felt led to talk about today, and something that God blessed us with yesterday, was the ability to hang out with a family. For those of you that go to church or any church, sometimes I feel like I'm not pinpointing any, because at our church, even in Hawaii, sometimes we would be, we go through the motions of what we felt we should do for a gathering, a fellowship, or a service. And as soon as the bell rings, everybody's out the door, right? I don't mean literal, like I'm kind of relating it to school, but it's kind of like, you ever been, like, if you remember when you went to a school that had bells? I don't even have bells today. So, but I remember when I was a kid, man, as soon as that bell rang, it can be for lunch, it can be for recess, for sure when school's done, man, we're like, our bags are on our shoulders and we're like just running out that door, right? Running to the bus stop. We're running to, man, what is the name? I can't remember. I want to say Itsu's, but I don't think that's the name. We used to run to this store just outside of the school just so we can get a surf pop. So in Hawaii, as a kid, we used to buy these surf pops. They were basically like popsicles, but they were big. They were fat. They were like just super thick and just like chunky. And sometimes we would skip lunch because we paid 45 cents for our lunch back then. And we used to skip lunch just so we can get snacks from the store. And we would save our money throughout the week, right? So we can buy, some big snacks, So, but anyways, we would rush out of that classroom so we can get to the store. I don't know what to call it. It was like a candy store, whatever. It was a convenience store. And we grab our surf pops, we get out of there, and then we go run to the bus stop because we didn't want to miss the bus. Nobody wants to miss the bus. For some reason, as a kid, you think if you miss the bus, it's like the end of the world. It's stressful. For us kids, it's very stressful, And so that was the culture back then. And whatever friends we had, that was like our group, right? Like, there's this one kid named Solomon, and Solomon, I'm not sure if you're ever going to watch this. Hopefully you're still alive, but there's this kid Solomon. He used to ride the bus with us. He was kind of like one of those, I'll just say weird kids. We thought he was one of those weird kids. And there's some others, and our friends Michael and Tommy Saw, they were Koreans, and their dad was he was a woodworker. So anyways, we had this crew of kids, and there are some bullies that were on this. But my point is, like, we were one crew. Not necessarily all friends, but we were like one crew that would get onto this bus. So the whole point of this bell ringing, getting out of the classroom and running to the store and getting into the bus, we can go home and we can play our video games, our Atari 2600. We do our chores. We go run and we go play, we had a mango tree. We played outside. And of course, when we got our Atari, that kind of changed a little bit. We would play our Atari a lot. But that was the plan, right? Go to school, do what we got to do, get out of there. And I feel like sometimes in church settings, for people that go to church, sometimes I feel like that's kind of how we are, right? Like the kids got soccer tomorrow, or I got to go to work at 4 a.m. So let's hurry up and get home. Let's just relax and take a nap, whatever. A lot of guys, I don't know what it is, but sometimes the sofa just calls my name on Sundays. I don't know why that is. But one of the things I'll share today, and I'm not going to preach on this podcast today, but what I will say is that the Bible, it does talk about not forsaking the fellowship amongst believers. Part of that is it's not just hanging out; it's the sharpening of iron sharpening iron, right? The crazy thing about fellowship is that it's a great way to eliminate cliques. If there's a such thing in churches, right? Let's just pretend, or in any gathering, it can be in your workplace. When you have a gathering, it tends to eliminate cliques, or potentially, not always so. Sometimes the cliques just stick together no matter what. It depends on the host, right? So yesterday, after service, we had an opportunity to hang out with a family, and we were just talking. I think we were talking for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And usually the culture on Sundays for most churches across America is, as soon as the pastor prays and the service, everybody's boom out of there. Some will hang out for a few minutes, and some will hang out longer than others. We hung out, and we were just talking to this family, and everybody had already left. And just felt led, you know what? Hey, why don't we go over here? So we were able to spend time with this family. We took them out to eat, and I learned a lot yesterday about the investment of time and how important. Because there's a lot of things that we kind of knew about each other, this family and our family, but we didn't really know in detail. And sometimes when you're in a public setting, it you have, like, I don't know, a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 6 minutes to get to know somebody, and then you got to sit back down, or you're gonna, it can be. And this goes for a business meeting, right? This goes for conferences. This goes for, and as exciting as the public gathering is, the fellowship, there's different facets to that. There's different chapters, if you will, that will enhance, I would just say, your lifestyle. And I made some notes today. I really want to go through these things to kind of cover what fellowship is. And so for anybody that maybe in your part of the world, and I wrote down these words, Kani Kapila, that's Hawaii, right? Where we kind of hang out, eat, play music. A lot of people use the word potluck, where everybody brings a dish or food, like a food item, and you just, I think koinonia, I think, is the Greeks. For people that know Hawaii, I'm gonna use a lot of Hawaii reference today, but like a luau, right? So a luau would be like, traditionally an entire village would come together and just, whether they hunted or fished, gathered certain foods, and they put it all together. And after a long day of just working and celebrating, it can be music, they come together and they have a huge meal, and everybody just hangs out, talk story. We say talk story. You can say fellowship. You get to learn about each other. And I will say that Hawaii culture, because that's my culture, my bloodline. I am so blessed to be able to have some of that, not just in our bloodline and our history, but like even now, like we're in Oregon. For people that didn't catch the earlier discussions I've had, but we're in the state of Oregon, and it's a lot different here. And it's not different necessarily in a bad way, but it's just different. I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily invest the time like how Hawaii people do. And it's not nothing negative. It's just a cultural thing. Culture in Hawaii is, we're just going to hang out and it's not an imposing kind of a thing. It's like we're very comfortable having guests where, and it's not, has nothing to do with like I want to hang out so I can, you know, take or it's really, it's more of a giving culture, right? So, but that idea of having this fellowship Hawaiian style as a kid growing up, it was a blessing. And so my dad Filipino, right? So on the Filipino side, not the same as Hawaiians in the sense of um how would I describe the differences? So in my Filipino side, it was always about the food. Hawaiians too, but for sure Filipino. If you ever been to a Filipino household when they have, you know, parties, they have so much stuff. I mean, Hawaiian food too, but Filipino has always got. I feel like sometimes the Filipino uh, food, they don't really throw away anything. You know, it's kind of like Cantonese. If anybody ever had Cantonese style cooking, I'm not picking on Cantonese people, but I'm part Chinese, so I can kind of, I feel like I have a kind of a free pass. But Filipinos, man, they eat the pork blood, they eat the intestines, and I know all cultures kind of have something similar, but Filipino food, man, I don't eat. They eat balut, which is like, you know, it's like an egg that is developing. You know, it's like, oh, I don't think so. No, no. The thing looking at you, right? Of course, it's cooked, but still, with the feathers, no, I don't like eggs with feathers. But so Filipino culture, like, and we could sit around the table and just eat and just, you know, have a good time. Hawaiian culture, same thing. It's a little bit on a different scale. Hawaiian food tends to be a lot heavier. so you know, if you look at Hawaiian people generally versus Filipino, there's going to be a major size difference, right? And so, but it led me to this. What I wanted to share about, you know, we're going to talk about the art of fellowship, but also the importance of it. And so if I was to ask you guys today, for anybody that's listening, everybody that's watching, you know, if I was to ask you, like, what is your interpretation of fellowship? You know, and what is your understanding of fellowship? And a lot of times when we hear the word fellowship, we immediately go to church. I think sometimes a lot of people, because that word, that's not a word. Or you go to Lord of the Rings, you know. So it's like either church or Lord of the Rings. And ironically, there's actually a very fine thread that connects the two of those, you know. And so if I was to ask, you know, anybody that's watching or listening, like, what is your interpretation of fellowship? And a lot of times we'll go towards like church or, you know, obviously the movie Fellowship of the Ring. But I'm going to make the argument that fellowship has variable dynamics to it, meaning like it can be on a grand scale, as someone was reading the Bible where it says, do not forsake, you know, the fellowship amongst believers. And there's huge benefit to that. But I'm going to make the case that even for me as a kid, I was able to experience fellowship with my brother, just me and him. And it was valuable. And there was a time, I wish I could tell you the year because I can't remember. We'll just say 80, no, yeah, 80. We'll just say 1980. Oh, it's in 1980. My brother and I used to sit at the, oh, let's say 86. No, 82. Let's say 80. 1982. My brother and I used to sit. So in our house, we had a dining room. And in this dining room, it had like this chandelier that hung over the table, right? So it lit the table in this dining room. And then we had another room, which was, I call it the living room. And then the living room had like a sofa, a couple of sofas, had a TV, had the big stereo. It had a big picture window where we could see outside. We could see, like, we had a rainforest in our backyard. So our backyard was literally a rainforest, mango trees. But banana trees, coconut trees. That was our backyard, and so the picture window was our, and we had a little I made a little pond in the back, as a kid, and that was my playground. But so that was the living room, I called that, and then we had another room called the family room. And the family room is where my mom and dad had these really expensive sofas. I don't know but they're expensive and fancy looking. And in this room, we had a piano. Ah, man, I'm pulling up all these memories now. We had a piano, and then my dad had another stereo in that room, which was kind of like an expensive stereo. So the other one was more for like him using every day, and he had another stereo in there. And then it was all this fancy, photos or art. I don't think it was artwork, but pictures in the family room. But there was no TV. So there was no TV in the family room. And of course, this one had a huge picture window where we could see outside. And of course, our front yard it was a beautiful landscaping. And for people that have seen my old pictures, so I'm painting this picture for you, okay? So we had a family room with no TV, had a piano and maybe a stereo for music, had a nice big coffee table, and then we had the living room. This is where, and also in the living room we had these small little fold up dinner tables. Okay, so here's a picture. I painted all that, so it took a long time for that one. But my brother and I, every morning, 5 days a week, just me and him. Sometimes my dad would join us, but we would sit at our family in our dining room, and we would eat breakfast together every morning, 5 days a week. Sometimes we were rushing, sometimes we woke up late for school, but we would eat cereal. And our routine was we would sit at the table and we would eat cereal. The routine was pour the cereal, pour the milk, put the box down, and we would read the box. Like we would read the labels. I learned a lot about chemicals. As a kid, I learned a lot. I learned so much about ingredients. I learned a lot about wow, cereal really is rolled oats. Or I was like, wow, what is so as a kid, I'm reading all the ingredients. And then I turn a box around, and back then they had games, right? You could play games. And some cereal boxes back then, you would get actual, toys in them. So a lot of times we would shake the bag upside down so we get the toy, because usually the toy would fall to the bottom. And as time progressed, they got cheaper. They got like stickers and whatever. So that was our routine. And my brother and I, we rarely talked. A lot of times we would just, if we talked, it would be a question about. And it's funny because my boys are, they're older, but they remind me of how my brother and I used to be. And in these conversations, I don't remember a lot of what we talked about, because we didn't really talk a lot, because we're kind of usually in a rush. We usually had like 10 minutes to eat, right? And but in my mind and in my heart, the lady we spent time with yesterday, she said something. I wish I could. I'll remember it and I'll post it somewhere. She said something in the area of memories. It's just like we never forget the memories. Like you don't forget. There's no expiration to our memories. I think that's what she said. I probably butchered that, by the way. But I don't remember our conversations. I just remember the time we spent, and I remember how good it felt. And even now, I'll be turning 50 this year. I miss having that, to just sit at a table, eat breakfast with my brother, and we just hang out. And a lot of times my backpack would be here, and my shoes, I wear slippers or shoes, and I'm like, just as soon as I'm done, throw the bowl in the sink, and we run out the door. I don't think we ever washed dishes before we. I think we just rinsed it, threw it in the sink, because when we came back home, we got to do chores. So, but that was my memory, my first memory of actual fellowship, and that's with my brother. And even to this day, man, it's so special. You know, as simple as that was, it makes me look at my brother now, who is, who's been in a hospital for a very long time, 3 years. It makes me really treasure what we used to have, and makes me wish I could have that now. And I'm not saying this as in a form of regret, but as a way of like being grateful. I said, God, wow, you blessed me and my brother with an opportunity all those years ago to be able to do that. I bring it up now because I don't know how many people have that today. I don't know. I have a suspicion that not a lot of people can experience that today, just because of culture, just because of how people are raised today. And I don't know. If I was to ask, if I was to ask the audience today, sorry, my camera went out. I'm not sure why I did that. But if I was to ask anybody that's listening or watching today, like, do you have that? Do you have that ability to just sit at a table, have a meal, or even just a discussion, just fellowship? One thing with my family, we always had dinner together. My parents worked. My dad was a bank executive. He was a vice president of a bank in Hawaii. My mom she managed a medical group back then. But we always had dinner at the table every single day as a kid. We never, now, of course, the exception is if we went out to eat or something like that. So I will say, once Happy Days, I'm showing my age here, but if anybody ever watched Happy Days, there was Happy Days, A-Team. What did we have back then? Happy Days, A-Team. Happy Days, I think, was on a rerun, because I think it was, but it was still, we would watch that every single certain times of the week. They would have, so for people that don't know, TV back in the day, it was actually on a schedule. Like, if you missed it on a Thursday, you missed it. So the way we did our family dinner, sometimes we would eat if you remember, I talked about the living room. So our living room was where we had the TV. Okay. So in the living room, we would set up these little, I call them micro tables, the little fold outs. I don't know if anybody is even going to know what this is. I'm going to try my best to explain it. But we had these wooden tables. They're not that big. They're like, I don't even know the dimensions, but I'm going to just kind of like paint a picture for you, okay? And you'd flip them over, and they had these metal legs that you had to squeeze and plop out. Squeeze them and plop them out, right? And you had 4 legs. So my job, since I was the youngest, that was my job to unfold the legs, turn the table over, and then, I would have to get the forks, the napkins, the spoons, and then my brother would bring the food, and we would have our family dinner watching Happy Days on these little micro tables. And even though we were watching TV, we were together as a family eating dinner. And even to this day, I'm like, man, that was so special. That was so cool. Because we don't have that today. Like, let me say this, my family, we eat dinner together almost every day. There's some days we're not home, if I'm working late, or if we're at church, or we've got something that's taking us away from the house, basically. Or if I'm traveling, I don't travel as much now, but there are times where, and this is the rough part. This is where I want to talk about today. Like, me not being home and just traveling a lot, that was tough. And I don't look forward to traveling in that respect, like not being home, and then, my wife and kids are, they're, I don't want to say they're fending for themselves, but it almost is, right? So I forgot, I lost my place. Where was I? We're talking about, my family eating dinner. Yeah. Watching Happy Days, right? But it was during those moments when we talked, when we sat at the dinner table in the dining room. When my grandparents would come over, we would eat dinner in the dining room. So my parents were smart. When they built the house, they designed everything with a purpose, right? So the dining room, there was nothing in the dining room except for the chandelier and a couple of photographs around the dining room. And the dining room was separate from every other room in the house. When you came into the dining room, that's all you did. And we would sit there for hours just eating and talking, laughing, sometimes crying. I can't remember the specific details, but I remember being at the dinner table, and I remember seeing my grandparents crying. And I still remember this. Check this out. I actually remember this. Isn't this crazy? I remember as a kid, I think I was 8 years old, or I think I was 9. I remember sitting at the dinner table. We just had dinner. My grandparents, my grandpa Hui and my grandma Hui both passed away. That's my Hawaiian side. I remember them sitting at the table and they was crying. Isn't that crazy how I remember that? That's like 35 years ago. More than that. No, shoot. That's like 40 years ago. Wow. I remember my grandparents crying at the dinner table. And the reason why they were crying is because their daughter, my Auntie Alicia, had just left Hawaii to go to college. And I remember how sad they were. They were heartbroken. And I don't think, at that time, I don't know if they, I don't remember the context of it all. But I just know that they were heartbroken. They were just sad that she was gone. That she was going to forever write out a different chapter without them. And it was all at the dinner table. Isn't that crazy? I remember learning about so at the same dinner table, the same dining room, my grandmother used to teach me how to eat fish. This is something, a detail that I always will remember. She taught me how to eat fish. And so for people that if you're from like a Chinese type country, or Japanese or Hawaiian, or even a European country that where they eat the whole fish, like when we eat fish, we cook the whole thing. Of course, we cleaned it out, but anyways, we had this big fish on the table, right? And my grandma, man, she knew how to eat, bro. I'm telling you, she would scoop out take out part of the belly, and she would pluck out the eyeballs. And I'm like, as a kid, you kind of, and grandma, you eating an eyeball? And she's like, yeah, it's good. So me being naive and just a little kid, I want to try some new stuff. So I eat one, and I'm trying to eat this fish. I'm trying to eat the fish eyeball. And I'm crunching and crunching. I'm like, it's not working. And I remember she goes, no, you don't eat it. You just got to suck on it. So I'm like, okay. And after a while, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is good. But in all reality, it's not good. It doesn't taste good. I mean, it doesn't taste bad. I don't know. It tastes like, I don't know. It's just like a chewy gumball that never turns into bubble gum. So I think in my mind is what I was thinking. If I chew this, it's going to become like a fish gumball or a fish bubble gum, or I don't know. But that was all around the dinner table. And all those moments, I think, are so important. I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time today. I know we're talking about fellowship, and I know we're talking about, but we're going to spend a lot of time on like the dinner table, because I think that's something that's lacking today. And even if you're single, man, set up a little dinner table. Turn off your cell phone. or TV, or leave it on. I don't know, and just sit there and eat. And then if you gotta have someone to talk to, maybe turn on your phone and maybe call somebody and you guys talk and eat together. I don't know. I'm trying to get creative with this, but all those elements I was sharing with you guys is that there's so much things that I learned around the dinner table, but it was never really about the food, right? It was always about the time. And I think that the time that we had around those moments are so special that how shall I put it? They're almost like, well, one of the things that's happening right now with I'm going to go into AI, and I'm going to connect the dots in this. There's a lot of people that are doing AI art right, and beautiful stuff. As a matter of fact, my image for my intro video was AI art. So there's a use for it. But there's something about something that's done like organically in person, in the flesh, that makes it so powerful. During the pandemic, for people that experienced a pandemic, you may have remembered how we did work. Do you guys remember when the pandemic happened? When you had to stay home from work? Do you guys remember that? And do you remember when you had meetings? You could go to a meeting without any pants on. You guys remember that? You remember you could show up to work without pants? You can just wear your underwear? Isn't that crazy? And I know I'm making light of it. I'm joking about it. But so for those of you that know Joey, so when we had our cryptocurrency company, that we had a team of 10 people, I think. And so we did a few meetings where, in person, not in person, but remote meetings, right? And it was crazy because I didn't meet half the people that were on our team. As a matter of fact, I don't even know them. And we had these meetings, and there was no requirement, there was no dress code, right? So, and as cool as that was, and for people, and man, God bless, technology where people could still work, but there was a dynamic that was missing, right? There's stories, you guys know what I'm talking about. There's stories where people, they would get a job during the pandemic, and they would do these meetings, and then when they show up in person, it's different. It's almost like I kind of know you because we've been talking, on a screen for the past year. And then there's people that were working in a organic brick and mortar location, wearing a mask, and then when they finally take the mask off because the mandates are over, they look at each other and like, this is the first time I'm seeing your face. Right? And there's something about that connection that matters. And I'm not knocking anybody that has a company where that's how you do your, because that's very important, right? We've done that, so we understand that. And even now, my wife has she does these prayer meetings, and even that's done because some of the people are going to be thousands of miles away, and so, but the value of that fellowship, it increases when you are amongst each other, right? There's just something about that. So yesterday, when if you missed the beginning, you can rewind later. So yesterday, when we were able to take this family out for lunch yesterday, and here's what I'll say. I remember we were talking outside of the church yesterday, and I hear God just say, "Hey, just take them out to eat." So we took them out, and in Hawaiian culture, in my culture, in my family culture, if I ask you, "Hey, let's go out to eat," or "Let's go somewhere," and I invite you, my culture, the way I was raised, was I pay for everything. That's just how, and it's not a pride thing. It's not I'm a better than you thing, or it's not that I think that you can't afford it. It has nothing to do with that. Maybe you can. put it this way. So one of my friends who's got Guku loads more money than I do. Even when we went out to eat, if I invited him, hey, I'll I got it. But so, anyways, the yesterday there were two occasions where they offered, they threw cash on the table. No, I don't want it. Here, take it back. And it's not a pride thing. It was in that moment. It was all about I asked you, so I'm gonna take care of it. This is what we do, right? And so now another person in the same family offered, and I didn't want to make them feel bad because that's not what it was about, right? And so I said, listen, and I told them this is how I was raised, and to make it more to lighten the pressure, what I said was, I'll tell you what, here, take the money back. Next time you go out to eat or get coffee or whatever, you can use it then. And the beautiful thing about having conversations and fellowship like that for us, and I'm not teaching or trying to tell anybody this is how you should do it, but one of the beautiful things about having fellowship in that capacity is that you're able to bless somebody. But more importantly, on top of that, is that you get to know them, right? And we learned a lot yesterday, just in that one conversation, just in that one lunch meeting with them. And if I was to encourage anybody today, there's a lot of things you can learn by just investing time in people, And I'm gonna go to the gallon size. I'm gonna go to the Ziploc bag fellowship because that's my title today. So I told people in the beginning, I don't want to bait and switch you. So I'm going to go into detail what Ziploc bag fellowship means. So for those of you that came in late in the conversation, in Hawaii, every time you go to a luau or you go to my family dinners, we always have Ziploc bags at the ready. Like we have the gallon size Ziploc bags, and they're open and they're ready. And the reason why we do that, when we're done eating, we're gonna pack all the food in bags. We're gonna make the rice. We make the fried noodles. If you get lau, if you get kalua pig, if we have whatever poke usually it's gone. We don't send poke. We usually eat it. So, but we make the bags. And the reason why that's important is that. So I'm gonna throw my cousin, Pastor Rachel Ewan, Rachel Nihi. So some of you guys may have met her, maybe you've seen her before, but her and her husband Jared. So my cousin Rachel, she's Hawaiian. I'll just say Hawaiian, and she's half Hawaiian, half Hale. Okay, so her mom's from Virginia, her dad, my mom's brother. Hawaiian, and I want to say Japanese. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. They can correct me later. But so, anyways, my cousin Rachel is. You see her, she's Hawaiian for sure. And it's not about the size, because our Hawaiian side is kind of on the bigger side. So, but her husband, Jared. Bro, that bugger is like 6'3". I don't know the weight now, but I do know in college when he played football, he was like 3. I want to say 3, around 300, 6'3", 6'3", no, 6'3" or 6'2". It was big. No, I think 6'3". I think his brother is even bigger, 6'4", 6'5". Same build. So, anyways, that's their family, okay. And here's my point. You go to Rachel's house. So Rachel has a dinner table too, okay? But nobody sits at the dinner table. Okay? Nobody sits at the dinner table. Nobody. Because the dinner table is one of the tables that we use just for the food. I'm actually underselling this, okay? Because there's a lot more. It's not because we're pigs. We can eat, but there's so much food. Like, we have like 6 or 7 main courses. um, 5 or 6 side dishes, more than that actually. We have at least 5 or 6 desserts. Of course, you gotta have the poke. Always have poke, always, and it's not just one. We have like at least 3 to 4 minimum different types of poke. Um, and then we have another. She'll have like a cooler outside with all the drinks, but that's a normal thing. And so the thought process to these types of meals and these types of fellowships is that it's never about the food. The food is what brings us together, or so we think. But it's the conversations we have with them. And we can, so if you don't know what a typical meal is like in our house or in my cousin's house, the first hour, you're saying hello, you're hugging everybody. I missed you. How's everything? And your family? How this and that? We start to eat a little bit. And even when we're eating, we're still saying, hey, we're talking, eating. That's the first hour. Okay. Second hour, we start really getting into the heavy conversation. That's when we have the tough stuff. We talk about, what happened. We talk about, I'm struggling with this. How we have those tough talks. That's an hour number 2. And somewhere in between hour number 2, we're eating again. Or we're eating while we're talking. And then sometimes in hour 3, that's when it gets really heavy and emotional sometimes. And I'm oversimplifying it because there's a lot more details and dynamics to how these family dinners go. But and usually around the 4th hour, we sometimes we take a nap. I do. I'll take a nap if I'm tired. I'll go to. I don't care whose house it is. If we're gonna be there for hours, I take a nap. I don't care where I'm at. So, but yeah. So around that time, and then we start cleaning up. Right. Usually hour 4, hour 5, we start cleaning up. Now this is just my family specific. I'm not sure. I can't speak for all. But my cousin Rachel is the same. So we start cleaning up. And it's around this time when we start bagging stuff. We start putting food in bags. And then we'll put them in boxes. And through all of this process, man, we're growing up together. We're encouraging one another. We're speaking life over one another. We're even sometimes we'll discuss ideas. We've had, over a lot of these types of dinners, we've had business ideas pop up. We've had conferences come out of these types of fellowship. Now, I know this is not typical for everybody, but I'm just sharing you what my life and our family when it comes to fellowship. And I will say that, it's so important to have these moments. And I know that not a lot of families have that luxury, right? If you remember the movie, and we'll go to Lord of the Rings, because I think that's the connecting point for a lot of people. All of the things they experienced in that movie, right? Where they, I have my bones to pick with that movie because it was a very long movie, a long series of movies. But it was all about breaking bread with one another and a fellowship, even through all the hardships, right? I think there's something we're missing in today's culture, right? And even in like when we go out to eat, I have to tell myself, put the phone down. And sometimes I even have to tell myself, don't look at the phone. Sometimes I'm actually looking at my phone right now and the notifications pop up, right? And I got to tell myself, turn your phone over so you don't look at it. And, for people that, our income sometimes is tied to our phones, right? The way that we make money, our business or whatever. So sometimes we kind of have to check. But here's what I'll say. When you're in a moment like that, carve out that time. It's so valuable. It really is. I'm glad I didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid. I'm so glad I didn't, because I would not have those morning breakfast moments with my brother. You know what I mean? I would never have had that. I wouldn't have had that luxury. And I don't know how kids do it today, because everything is like in their face all the time, and adults too. Like, we know more about world events today than I did when I was, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not even monumental. It's not even like catastrophic. Like, when I was a kid, we found out about world events only if they were catastrophic. Now, if Donald Trump says, I don't like Russian food, everybody finds out, oh, did you see what Trump said about Russian food? Or it can be Joel Osteen from the big church in Texas. If he buys like a luxury car, everybody finds out within the hour. The whole world finds out. Like, we just can't escape it all. And the heartbreaking thing for me is that it puts us at a deficit. It puts us at a deficit. So now our organic life has succumbed to the electronic life. And the byproduct of that is that we have superficial, artificial relationships. One of the best testimonies that I want to talk about Twitter. I want to talk about Periscope, Twitter. For those that don't know what that is, so Periscope was a live streaming application that Twitter had purchased. I know 8 people that met through Twitter and got married. And there's 2 other couples that I know personally that are my personal friends. They're in my, I'm going to call them my inner circle, that they met because of Twitter. And it's crazy how these connections were initially made through social media. As a matter of fact, my one of the guys in my wedding court, when I got married all those years ago, he met his wife now because of the internet through chat rooms, and now they have a huge family. But it all led to this organic engagement or interaction. And I will say it's kind of heartbreaking to see today where people are they're struggling to have, I don't want to say just meeting, but they're struggling to have a real engaging relationship with someone, because everything is done through a screen, whether it could be a phone, iPad, computer, desktop, whatever. And if I was to encourage anybody, and this is where my church hat comes on. I met my wife, through the church, and I'm glad that I did, because I don't know if I could, I don't know how people do it today, where they're looking for relationship. And I'm not saying like, anything inappropriate, but I'm just saying like just to have connection, right? I don't know how they do it today. And a lot of times we go to our path of least resistance. And usually that's through social media, where people use social media as a form of connection. It's harder to go to your local place of fellowship. It can be a church, it can be maybe your workplace, or whatever you have, right? I think people go towards that path of least resistance, where they don't necessarily have to show their face. They can, at any time they can exit that social gathering on social media, whatever it may be, and then go back to their cubby at home or at work or where they're at. If I sit in a room with my wife, and matter of fact, she's probably waiting for me right now, but I am in that room with her, and I'm committed to finish this out. Matter of fact, before I went live, and we're probably going to talk about this, but she said, hey, how come you walked away? I was in the middle of saying something. And for me, I didn't even think anything of it because my mindset and my eyes were focused on getting my notes ready, getting all of my quote unquote technology things ready. But to go back to the actual art of fellowship, or what I call today the Ziploc bag fellowship, is that once we're committed in this discussion, fellowship, dinner, whatever setting you've got, I'm there from the start to the finish. And the tough part about that is making sure your cell phone is turned off, or it's turned over, or it's not on silent. Sometimes, this is a funny part. Sometimes my wife, she'll text me. Right? She'll text me. And guess where she is? She's right next to me. So, sometimes she'll text me, and I'm literally right next to her. That's sad, people. If your spouse has to text you, and she's sitting right next to you. So here's what I'll say. If you want to build some value in your life, so I don't want to say value necessarily that you don't have value if you don't, but to build some organic value, when you get out into those organic moments, man, turn that phone over, put it on silent, turn it off if you can. I understand some of us can't. I get it, because some of us have a lot of money tied to our phone being on. So I totally understand that. But when you have that moment, carve it out and specifically like make it relevant. Well, one of the worst things I can do to my wife is, be on my phone when she's talking to me. And I do it unconsciously. I'm like, I don't even know I'm doing it sometimes. And that's bad. That's bad behavior. If my kids do that, and my kids don't have cell phones. Actually, my daughter does, but they don't have social media. So, and what I will say is that every time I have a carved out moment of time, I got to make sure, hey, turn the phone over. And don't trick yourself, okay? So don't say, "Oh, I need my phone to fact check while we're talking." Don't. I do that a lot. I'm guilty of like doing the whole Google thing because I want to know, and it's force of habit, right? I don't know if anybody else. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that fact checks conversations while I'm in it. Or don't do it, because next thing you know, you're gonna close out the Google. And then you're gonna go to your Facebook Meta. You're gonna go to your Twitter. You're gonna go Chat GPT and draw some action figure. You're gonna have to do some action figure. I'm like, I don't know. And by the way, I don't know what that's about. I'm trying my best to not get into that. I don't understand it. As a quote unquote content creator, I don't understand how so many people are jumping on that bandwagon. I get it. It's cool. I told my wife, I told my wife that, yeah, it is pretty cool, but I don't know. I don't want to do it just because everybody else is, So, anyways, turn off the phone. I got to remind myself, don't fall into that trap of fact checking while you're in an organic conversation. I will say I've noticed my connection kind of blipped in and out, so I do apologize to my live audience. We are going to land the plane in a few minutes, but I just wanted to really, I'll share some scripture for anybody that wants to, put some heaviness to it. But in Hebrews 10:25, this is what I referenced earlier. It just says that do not forsake the assembly amongst believers, if you want reference for that. So Dr. John said, if you fact check me during a conversation, that would be our last conversation. That's funny. That is funny. Well, that's a good one. Would it be? I feel like that's a threat. That's so funny. But I know it's not a threat. But my son. So my youngest son, he's so smart. Like, and he plays it off like because of his behavior and things he does, you don't look at him as the analytical one, or the high talk. We call it high talking intellectual, because my other son is that high talking intellectual, but my youngest son, he knows more about American history than most kids his age. I would say a high, just because I don't know, he can tell you about the world wars, tell you about what countries were involved. He can tell you all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, with Dr. John, but here's what I'll say. The fact checking. Yeah. So my son, sometimes he'll we'll be in the middle of something, and he would just talk to the Google, right? We have Google all around our house. And so he's always asking for facts or information. Like, if we tell him something, he doesn't believe it, you better believe that he's going to ask Google for the answer, And so that's what I'll say with that. But in the moment of your organics family, keep it non-GMO, if that makes any sense. And I'm going to close out with the Ziploc bag fellowship for anybody that's like, well, I was waiting for you to explain that. So I explained it twice already. So in closing, this is how I explain it. I'm going to read this last comment before I close it out. So Dr. John says, being kind of that, but there is some truth that I would see it as a highly offensive. Conversation is a relationship, not a factor. True. Very true. Very, very true. If you guys are not following Dr. John, he's a dear friend out there in Canada. We did a podcast together last year. Wow. But in the area of Ziploc bag fellowship, this is what I'll say. The connection I made in the beginning was, you come to my house, you go to my family's house in Hawaii. Although we packed the bags full of food for you to take home, because we have more than enough food. Even yesterday, I know I'm going sideways, I'm going to come back. Yesterday we had Chinese food, right? And so we ordered Chinese food. Everybody orders and we just spin the table, that spinning table. And we just ate and we ate and we talked and we ate. And then when we were all full, we packed the food in boxes and we just gave it to, the family. And it wasn't, like I said, it was not about, had nothing to do with pride, or it was all about blessing. All about being a blessing. In that lunch, in that meal, in that fellowship, it's all about being a blessing. And in Hawaiian culture, when it comes to the food, even though we pack in, the kalua pig, the Hawaiian food, the lomi salmon, the fish, whatever we had, outside of it being a blessing, I can tell you this: when there have been times when we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have enough food for the week. And going to those parties and going home with literally 10 pounds of food, you know what I mean? And you put it in your refrigerator. So that art of fellowship has much more than just a conversation. A lot of times we look at fellowship as conversation. But the art of it truly is not just talking. And it's not just about breaking bread and having juice or wine, whatever it is how you do it. But it's literally pouring into one another. That it develops something so lasting. And I can't help but go back to 1982. When my brother and I was 7 or 8. And I can't stop thinking about this entire time I'm doing this podcast, how much I miss sitting at the table with my brother, eating cereal, and reading the box labels, and me and him fighting and arguing over the toy that would be in the box. I can't stop thinking about those moments. because it was so special. And my heart breaks for people that don't have that today, because that memory is forever etched in my heart and my mind. It's tucked away. When I need to pull it back up and think about it, it's there. And that is the art of the fellowship. That is the Ziplock bag fellowship. It wasn't about the cereal. It wasn't about the toy that we fought over. It wasn't about reading the nutritional facts on the side of the box. It was about having my brother next to me and just hanging out. I don't even remember the conversations, to be honest with you. But my heart is forever connected to him through that simple conversation. 5 days a week, eating breakfast at the table. Sometimes we fight, and sometimes we argue, and sometimes we're late for school. But we had that time. And it was so special. All right, I'm done. I just want to say thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for giving me your time. This is a short one. I can go on and on and on, but I think I wanted to land it on that. So I will say, guys, I really appreciate you guys spending time with me. I appreciate that. Little announcement for Thursday. So Thursday, I'm going to be doing a podcast with Pastor Rory Rogers. He is a lead pastor for Calvary Chapel. We'll be doing it organic in person at Sora Sushi. So we're going to eat some sushi after we're done. Hopefully, we'll see if he has time. But we'll be doing that organic in person. Just keep us in your prayers so we can set all the equipment up, the cameras, the lighting. Hopefully there's no, hiccups like today. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what God's going to do this year for our podcast. And we appreciate just everybody really sharing this out. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, thank you for giving us a 5-star review. Appreciate you for that. So, all right, that's it. We gotta go do some shopping for the kids, and then I gotta pick up some equipment. And that's it. I think that's it. We're good. Family, thank you for your time. Thank you for your hearts, for those of you that are tapping on the screen, the likes, shares, reposts. Thank you for all of that. But most importantly, thank you for your time above everything else. And I really hope that the exchange of your time for this, that it was worth it. And it is my desire to share my heart, my life stories, and just creating historical documents through conversation. So my name is Brother Greg, aka gLO. Thank you for everything. Love you guys. God bless you guys. Hui ho, aloha and mahalo. Yes, sir. Choo.